What is going on, everyone? Who wants to know what state to move to if you want to better your chances at having an underachiever for a child? I know I did about 20 years ago when my kids started hitting high school age. I wanted to leave California and find a better state for education, and I needed to know which ones to avoid. My kids started off in Redondo Beach Unified School District in California. Up until high school, it's a great school district. It's a nice place for your kids to grow and learn. Great schools, great teachers. Then you get to the high school. When my oldest was a freshman at Redondo Union High School, I realized something had to change. I actually left the state and moved to Oregon so my kids could get a better education. Back in those days, you didn't have 1,000 websites grading schools. You had to go by word of mouth, really. That was the main thing. I'd gone to a high school about 4 blocks away in the next town over, Torrance, California. I went to West Torrance High. It was about 20 years earlier than my kids were hitting high school. And even back then, when I was in high school, Redondo High sucked. I thought it had gotten better over the years. I mean, you can't continually just suck forever, right? But a couple of people told me no, that it was a good school now and it had gotten better. One of those people being my cousin's ex-wife. Should have known better right then. It still sucked. And the summer after my son's freshman year, we were living in Oregon. Some of you might be in the same situation that I was in. If you're looking for a new state with good schools, this video's for you. It's going to list the ones you should scratch off your list. Now, as always, when dealing with something like this, we're talking about averages. And I'm sure you could find a couple diamonds in the rough in each state, maybe a good school district here or a great school, whatever. We're talking averages. I'm in that category. I moved to Oregon for better schools, and Oregon's on this list, as you'll see later. That being said, why don't you sit back and watch my top 10 worst states to educate your kids. Number 10, Idaho. So we start off in the gem state. Idaho has a lot going for it, but schools wouldn't be one of those things. They have the 10th worst graduation rate in the country at 79.7%. And if you read the comment section of anything I've ever made about Idaho, one would assume the only thing they're teaching these kids in Idaho schools would be how to correct people on how to say Boise while using poor English grammar. They also wouldn't notice that I switch back and forth by saying Boise and Boise. And there's a reason for it, which they haven't clued into yet. But we'll move on. Idaho spends the second lowest per student at $7,100 a year. I guess they're saving money by not hiring English teachers or something. And to all the people in Idaho, California and Libertard are not real words. Let it go. Number 9, Michigan. 4 states east of Idaho, you have the Wolverine state, Michigan. Michigan, as you know, is home to 2 of the worst cities the country has to offer, Detroit and Flint. Over the last decade or 3, Detroit has been in bad shape, and really, schools are the least of their problems. Schools are ranked right behind too many people living in poverty, too many bail bondsmen roaming the streets, and too many payday loan locations on the streets. Basically, Michigan is 2 or 3 more cities like Flint away from being the next Mississippi. The graduation rate in Michigan is 79.6%, but they still spend a good amount of money per student, with the 20th highest in the nation. Number 8, Arizona. Heading down to the southwest, you have the desert state of Arizona, and before you do, stop typing. I know it's not 100% desert, a good portion of it is, and that's what it's known for. Someone always has to explain Flagstaff to us, okay? We get it. Flagstaff has some trees. A majority of the state is desert, like I said. Deal with it. Arizona spends the 3rd lowest per student in the country, and it shows. The graduation rate is 79.5%. And here's a strange story coming out of the schools that I read while I was researching this video. Now, this doesn't really have to do with their education. It needs to be shared. An assistant football coach at Mountain Point High School in Phoenix was leaking game plans to opposing teams for 3 years. Nobody really knows why. He just started sending out game plans. And not just to local rival football teams, like he had a axe to grind against the school he worked for, and he's trying to get at him. He was actually sending it out to out-of-state teams that were maybe coming in town to play them. It was weird. I don't understand that one at all. It happened like 3 weeks ago. I don't know if there's a big investigation going on with it or the police are involved, but it's just weird. Number 7, Georgia. Hey, look, we're talking about a southern state on a negative list, and it's not Mississippi. Number 7 is Georgia on this list of shame. The Peach State is known for a lot of things, including not as many kids lasting all 4 years in high school as they'd like. Only about 79.4% of the students get that piece of paper. Oddly enough, this is only one of 2 southern states on this list. Normally when it's a negative or a worst of list, the video's filled with southern states, not education. A few of them are actually in the top 5 for the best graduation rates. Tennessee and West Virginia. West Virginia's 3rd highest graduation rate in the country. That's amazing. Now, back to Georgia. They are the 15th lowest when it comes to per pupil spending. Georgia's a great place with a lot of good things going for it, and they have some amazing universities. It's just when it comes to spending on the below university level, they're not really doing it, and it shows a lot like some of the other states. Number 6, Colorado. And on to the Centennial State, Colorado. The nickname for Colorado is the Centennial State because centennial means 100, and Colorado became the 38th state 100 years and about a month after the United States became a country. Not a lot of people know that, and I get the feeling that not a lot of people that have gone through the education system in Colorado know that either. Only about 78.9% of the students graduate high school in Colorado, putting them at the 6th worst in the country. Bravo, Colorado. They're also the 13th lowest state when it comes to per student spending. All that money they've been making off those weed tax, you'd think they'd be able to bump that up a touch. Not Colorado. Number 5, Louisiana. And on to the Pelican State, Louisiana, our second and final southern state on this list. There's 4.6 million people living in this state, and a bunch of them haven't graduated high school. They actually have a lot of people that have never cracked the graduating 5th grade code either. Only 78.6% of the students will wear that ridiculous hat at the end of their 4 years in high school. But a bunch of them will wear a hairnet for far too many years after the year they should have graduated high school. This might be why Louisiana has some cities with some crazy crime rates. One of the best things you can do to lower a city's crime rate is to keep the kids in school. Kids that stay in school and graduate have a better outlook on the future and more opportunities. They are also less likely to point a firearm at you and take your stuff. Number 4, Alaska. And now for a big jump downwards. We have the great state of Alaska. It is a great state. That is until you start looking at education numbers, then it looks more like the mediocre state. Only 76.1% of the students will graduate high school. Good thing for these kids, Alaska has a bunch of jobs that don't require a high school diploma. Now this is where we get someone that explains that their job in Alaska needed a bachelor's degree or something like that. And I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about averages, okay? Move on. Now, here's where the last frontier gets a little strange. And yes, that is their nickname, the last frontier. Alaska is ranked as the 4th worst in graduation rates, but they spend the 4th most per pupil in the country. I think somebody's getting hosed here, not getting their money's worth. Number 3, Oregon. And now for my current home state, Oregon. You remember the place I moved my kids to for a better education that actually has a lower graduation rate than the one it's just weird. Anyway, the thing is this, I left a bad school in California for a good school in Oregon. Like I said, you can find a diamond in the rough when you're looking for schools in a certain state or city or whatever. I wouldn't say my kids' Oregon high school is a diamond. Let's just say it's like a ruby in the rough, not as valuable. I don't know. Whereas the California high school was a turd in the rough. The graduation rate in Oregon is an embarrassing 74.8%. That is sad. Come on, Oregon. Now they're middle of the road on per pupil spending at just under $11,000 per year per student. But yeah, that 74.8%, that one's hard to take. Number 2, Nevada. Coming in at number 2 is the Silver State, Nevada, and that is their official nickname. I actually had an argument with someone who thought it was actually Sin City State. Yeah, that was the thing. This was before everyone had a smartphone, so when I got home, I emailed it to her, and she was irritated and got all mad and said I made it, and I had to explain to her how to look it up. She looked it up, and then she never talked about it again. She's irritating. A couple years later, she convinced me my kid's high school in California was a good one. On average, only 73.6% of the students entering high school will graduate Nevada. Nevada also is the 9th lowest in spending per student. They've been this way for a very long time. And if you're watching my other videos, it's really strange that their schools look like prisons. They have the same architect that designed their prisons. It's really strange. And number 1. New Mexico. Congratulations, New Mexico, you're slowly becoming the new Mississippi. If you thought all the other states on this list were in bad shape when it comes to education, buckle up, it's gonna get ugly. In the land of disenchantment, only 71% of the students will graduate high school. That's right, 71%. They're almost 2 entire percentage points lower than the next one on this list. It's like they're trying to not graduate kids. It's really weird. Now, they do spend almost $10K per pupil every year, so it's not like they're, starving for money or lack of funding. They have some money for the kids, but what's going on? Now, to be honest, the state has some serious hurdles when it comes to things like poverty, but come on, man. Pull it together. New Mexico, by far, is the worst when it comes to education in the United States. Alright, so that is my top 10 worst states for education. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got some information out of it. It's kind of a bummer, this list, but, it's gotta be told. Anyway, don't forget to leave a comment. Tell me what you thought. Give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you already haven't. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.